Hey there. With the presidential election rapidly approaching, I'd like to take some time to remind everybody that this election could have a huge impact on the makeup of the Supreme Court. And that's an important thing, especially considering that John McCain has made it clear that he will appoint, if he has a chance to, strict constructionists to the Supreme Court. And those are people like Antonin Scalia. And that's not a good thing. A strict constructionist is someone who believes that we should go by the original intent of the Constitution. So what they basically say is that, if a right isn't explicitly spelled out in the Constitution or one of its amendments, then you don't have a right to it. All right? You don't have a right to that. And social conservatives have always used this logic, this argument over the years to deny minority groups their basic human rights, because they'll say, hey, you don't have that right. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you have that right. And a good example of that is the court case Lawrence versus Texas. About 5 years ago, there was a Supreme Court decision that finally struck down the anti-sodomy laws in the United States. And that's a good thing, but Scalia was not happy about it, and he wrote a really scathing dissent. And I'm going to provide a link to that, and I really urge you to read this entire dissent because it is scary. It really shows you what the strict constructionist judicial philosophy is. And it is scary. I mean, using this philosophy, you can pick anything you want. You can if you want to restrict any kind of minority right, you can just do it and say, hey, nothing in the Constitution that says I can't do it. Hey, I'm going to do it. It is a dangerous judicial philosophy. And furthermore, I think it's kind of disingenuous because it's not as if, if a state decided to, for some reason, pass a law that said heterosexual vaginal sex is now outlawed. It's not as if that case would go to the Supreme Court and Scalia would be like, well, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you have a right to vaginal sex. Well, I guess I'm going to have to allow that state law to stand. He wouldn't do that. He's signaling out, homosexuality here. He's like, well, I'm going to use this philosophy, to try to keep, these sodomy laws. I think it's wrong to get rid. He says, I think it's wrong to get rid of the sodomy laws, just because he doesn't like homosexuality. He's not really, using the law here, really being impartial. If it was about heterosexual sex, he would not, have the same decision. So yeah, it's really scary. And if you read the decision, you'll see he also speaks a lot about the majority, about the will of the majority. It's important to go by the will of the majority. But he goes too far. And a lot of socialist conservatives, a lot of conservative people go too far. Because they feel that in all cases, majority should rule. It should always be majority rules. So, majority of people are Christian, prayer in schools. Don't worry about anybody else. Majority of people are heterosexual, outlaw sodomy. Don't worry about the homosexuals. It's all about the majority. And they don't have any respect for the rights of minorities. And this goes against what the founders of the Constitution intended. The founders of the Constitution strongly, strongly believed in the rights of the minority. That's why they included the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights, especially the First Amendment, embodies the idea of minority rights. The First Amendment says, you can go out and you can speak and say what you want out in public, and the government can't stop you. You can assemble, peacefully assemble. The government can't stop you. You can practice an unpopular religion. The government can't punish you. The government can't stop you. And that embodies an important idea, an idea which was new at the time. And yes, there's nothing specifically in there about stuff like sodomy, but I think the underlying idea is what's important. If you really want to get to what the founders were talking about, they were talking about individual rights and the right of individual being more important than the right of government. And, if it's okay for someone to say stuff in public and practice religion in public and not be punished for it, how then can you say the government should be able to punish you for some sexual act you do in the privacy of your own home? I mean, some people say there's not a right to privacy, but I think the First Amendment kind of implies, that if you can do stuff in public and the government's not getting down on you for it. You know, as long as you're not hurting somebody else, you should be able to do anything you feel like in private. I mean, that's the whole idea of having a free country. I think it's a really underlying principle of the United States, and it worries me that, you know, that some people don't feel that way. I mean, I don't think the government should be able to mandate sexual behavior. They shouldn't be able to tell us, you know, what we do with our private parts. I mean, that's why they're called private parts. It's private. I mean, if I decide for some reason tomorrow morning that I want to have sex with my breakfast cereal, well, fine, I should be able to do that, all right? I'm in my own home, I can do what I want, and the government shouldn't be able to stop me. And it's really sad. It's really a contradiction, because conservatives have traditionally been for, you know, keep the government out of people's lives. But when it comes to stuff like sexual morality, they do a flip-flop and say, oh, but wait, if you're going to do some of that gay stuff, well, I got to stop you from doing that. No. You have to be consistent here, all right? Do you want the government in your lives or not? If you're saying the government needs to stay out of one's lives, your lives, which is really what's embodied in the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights, then just let people do what they want to in the privacy of their own home. All right, so Scalia scares me. His philosophy scares me. Read the decision. Read his dissent, I mean. It is scary, all the stuff he says in there. And once again, as I say in some of these vlogs, you know, if you can, if you know people, forward this. It's only a short time to the election. Maybe a lot of people won't see this video, but any impact we can have on people helps. A lot of people aren't thinking about the Supreme Court. They should be thinking about it. Also, you know, if you know anyone who's a legal scholar or anything like that, or a lawyer, try forwarding it to them, because I'd like to hear what they would think. And who knows? They say there are only 6 degrees of separation between all of us. And, you know, I'd really like to hear what Scalia would have to say about the idea of, you know, a law that would, you know, make vaginal sex illegal. I mean, does he really believe that those laws would be okay too? I'd be curious. And who knows? If you forward this stuff out to enough lawyers, yeah, I know it's only a tiny chance, but at least it slightly increases the chances that he'll see this. Because I want to know, because I saw him being interviewed on 60 Minutes recently, and it was such a softball interview. And I'm like, someone needs to ask this guy the right questions. And that's a question I want to ask. You know, how can you, how can you apply this to homosexuality but not heterosexuality? Would you really say that a law outlawing vaginal sex is okay because there's no explicit right to vaginal sex in the Constitution? I don't think we would use that standard. So if you're not going to use that standard there, you can't use that standard for sodomy either. So that's what I want to know. And if any of you legal scholars out there says I'm full of crap, let me know. I'd like to talk about it. And more importantly than anything else, folks, just get out there and vote. So those of you who are from the United States and are the right age to vote, get out there and vote. I'm going to link this baby to my, my little vote video, just as a little reminder that you got to get out there and vote, vote, vote. Vote, baby, vote. As always, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the polls.